This video is sponsored by the Armchair Historian website. More on that later. When Lieutenant General Thomas Gage arrived in Boston in early 1774, he initially only controlled the city, having little to no influence over the rural areas beyond these city walls. His spies reported that in rural Massachusetts, resentment against the British government was growing, and so too were the militias. They were stockpiling weapons and ammunition, and the illegally reinstated Provincial Congress was sending out envoys to other colonies to rally their support for a coordinated resistance against the British Army. To deal with this threat, Lieutenant General Gage ordered Lieutenant Colonel Francis Smith to make his way to Concord on April 19, 1775, with the goal of seizing the stockpiled munitions and capturing militia leaders. Local Patriot spies stationed in Boston received word of this order and soon dispatched several riders to warn nearby towns. Two of these riders were William Dawes and Paul Revere. On their way to Concord, the riders stopped at many small towns to alert the local militias. One of these towns was Lexington, where the local militia leader and veteran of the 7 Years' War, Captain Parker, hoped to intercept the British column headed for Concord. Parker had assembled along with 77 militiamen in the middle of town greens, but soon realized that he was outnumbered 10-1. He promptly ordered his men to stand down and for now go home. After some confusion, however, a shot was fired and a skirmish ensued between the two sides. 8 Lexington militiamen were killed in the retreat. Afterward, the British quickly advanced and marched on to Concord, where their next challenge awaited. Colonel James Barrett and about 200 of his Minutemen. Knowing he could not take on 700 British regulars, he redirected his troops north of the town. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Colonel Smith knew he was on the clock, as rebel troops were gathering rapidly. He divided his company of 700 men into 2 groups. One group was sent on a raiding party throughout the town, and he instructed them to find the hidden supplies. The other group was sent to secure the bridge north of the town, where Smith suspected rebel troops to cross. Within 2 hours, Barrett's 200 men who had retreated out of Concord had returned with approximately double the men they had previously. Soon, the bridge north of Concord was overrun, but Barrett did not advance to confront the rest of the British troops that were still searching Concord. He knew that time was on his side, since his force continued to grow. By noon, roughly 4 hours after Smith entered Concord, he decided to return to Boston, knowing that he may be soon outnumbered, and the weapons stationed in Barrett's farm were nowhere to be found. All along the route back to Lexington, his men were then harassed by small groups of Minutemen led by Colonel Barrett, who knew the terrain like the back of his hand. By the time the British reached Lexington, they were again confronted by Captain Parker, who was now much better prepared. He ambushed the column in what is called Parker's Revenge, and even managed to wound Smith himself. Historians suspect that the entire British force that had left Boston that morning may have been wiped out entirely if it were not for the rescue of Smith's forces by Gage. 1,000 additional men and 2 cannons had managed to disperse the militia, allowing for a hasty retreat back to Boston. However, on that journey back, the militiamen managed to inflict even more casualties on the retreating forces. By the end of the day, the British lost more than 250 men killed, wounded, or missing, while the militia's total casualties were less than 100. That same day, preparations for the siege of Boston were underway, with George Washington as commander-in-chief. But the city of Boston, defended by Thomas Gage himself, would easily hold out against the now formed Continental Army unless Washington had the cannon he needed to destroy the British supply ships in Boston Harbor. Thanks for watching. If you want to gain full access to this series, which will cover nearly every battle of the American Revolution, you can go to thearmchairhistorian.com, go to join, and sign up for as little as $4 for your first month if you're one of the first 30 people to use my promo code REVOLUTION. Those who pay for the premium membership will also be able to request their own lecture videos every few months, which all members will be able to view. And the best part is that no videos on the website will have ads or sponsorships. Lastly, Ironside is hosting a desktop giveaway for the new year. It's an extremely powerful computer. It's got an MSI GeForce GTX 1080 graphics card, and the CPU is an i7-8086K, and it's also got 32GB of Corsair RAM. You can see the rest of the specs on the screen. Be sure to check out the links in the description below to learn more about the giveaway, and it's entirely free to enter, so there's no reason not to.